Well, let's welcome aboard John from Pattern Seeking Animals. They got a new album coming out. We're going to talk about it. So, good morning, John.
Good morning.
Well, it's
Glad
probably
to see you.
afternoon for you.
It's just about to turn noon, so you got 2 more minutes. So, yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, so.
And I'm in Alaska, so we're only an
Oh
hour
yeah, yeah.
apart.
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect.
So tell me about this new fifth album that's coming on Valentine's Day.
Um, it's like I say, it's the fifth album called
Hmm.
"Friend of All Creatures," and it's another one in a series. Like I said, the fifth album. The first one came out, I think, in 2019. So we're doing one every year, year and a half from there. There's 7 songs. It's a little more concise than the previous albums. This one only clocks in at about 51 minutes, where the other ones have been longer. I just wanted something a little shorter and to the point this time.
Right.
And I think we just essentially honed in on our overall sound. And yeah, we're all really happy with the way it turned out. And again, you're right, it comes out on Valentine's Day for LP, CD, digital, streaming,
Hmm.
wherever fine albums are sold or streamed, right?
So it is quite the prog journey because the first single was over 9 minutes, but the second was only about 4 minutes. So you're mixing up the prog with something a little more maybe commercial.
Yeah, it's that's kind of how I write anyway.
Hmm.
Even within the prog, I have song sections which sound more like straight songs a lot of times. Um, this is kind of a mix on the album because there's 4 songs which are at least 8 minutes. One's 12, one's 9. Yeah, so there's longer one. Then there's 3, shorter ones, which are between, in the 4 minute range, 4 to 5 minute range. Yeah.
So is it hard? I mean, you guys all have these other projects you work in. Is it hard to schedule time and get the band back together?
The only one this is my only project. This is the only thing I do. I
Hmm.
write and I produce and I record. So for me, it's not tough. And I also, in my day job, I work at home. So you can see the studios behind me. I'm at my office desk right now. As you can see, as yours is too. It's perfect. And uh, Dave and Ted aren't really doing much with other projects now. They occasionally do recording projects and maybe we'll go out and do a live gig here or there. So it's our schedules have been really easy to work with, between those guys. Jimmy is a little more problematic sometimes because he's always out touring or playing with someone. He'll go and he's
Somebody.
with ABC right now. I think he's out the whole month of February or most of it.
Wow.
But luckily, um, he's available when I need him to record drums. And drums for the album, it's like probably 2 or 3 sessions, once every couple months. And he'll come in for, a day or half a day and just record drum parts. So it's not like we need him every day because he's really good and really fast at what he needs to do. The difference is this time we normally have he and Ted doing backing vocals. But he was not available to do backing vocals this time. So we handled it differently with a singer I've worked with forever named Diane Boothby, who I was in a band with Dave Orphan Moon years and years and years and many, many years ago. So she and Ted handled all the backing vocals. With occasionally, I would put my bleeding voice in there just to. But yeah, it turned out really well. And part of the reason is because Jimmy's vocal tone is very close to Ted's, but with her vocal tone in there, it gave it a really nice blend. Um, I don't say we were missing before. It's just different this time.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, to get back to the long answer to your very early question, um, we generally don't have an issue with scheduling. The only scheduling might be the recording studio we work in. I call them and say, hey, can we do a drum session next week? We're all booked up next week, that kind of thing. But overall, it's all good.
So are you all friends with all the animals? I mean, is this a concept? Is this a vegan concept album? I mean, why are we friends with
It's
all the animals?
You know what? It's purely from I was naming an album is always a journey, and it's just always a giant pain in the ass, to be honest with you, because you come up with something. I would come up with I'm always writing down names of albums and songs, and as I go along, and so each album I'll send. Okay, guys, here's about 20 names. What do you think? Do you have any other ones? And I'll get some lukewarm responses. Like, oh, that one's okay. This one's okay. And then finally we get one that someone would like, and I'd go and look online, and well, there's already a band named that, and there's already 14 other albums people have used that title for. And one day I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, the
Hmm.
Hindu book, and that's part of one of the lines. I am friend of all creatures. I thought, wow, friend of all creatures. That's interesting. So the first thing I did was look it up, and I couldn't find any other bands with that album title. I said, that's it. So I said, guys, here's the name of the album. It doesn't mean anything particularly about the album. I just love the title. It's unique.
But then comes the next hard part in your journey is coming up with an album cover.
Well, that's the other thing I've done continually for years is I follow a ton of different artists on Instagram, hundreds and hundreds. So every time I see an artist I like or a piece of artwork, um, I will I'll save it. And so when an album comes around, I'll start going through them. And I wanted it to match something, with the album sounded, how the album
Mhm.
or the title sounded like, or it matched what you're thinking of. And when I came across that album, the artist Inga Schuster, I thought, oh, this is perfect, absolutely perfect. So I contacted her and was able to license the artwork for the album cover. So to me, it was a really good fit.
That worked out great then.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like in the past, um, for like three of our albums, we've had Thomas Ewerhart, who's a great artist, who's done tons of different groups. For instance, I did a bunch of the Spock's covers, and he's done every group imaginable. Where we had come up with a concept, and I say, well, try this, let's try this, let's try this, which is fine, except it's a longer process. So I just thought, you know what, this time I'm just going to find something and license it, and it turned out really well. Then Thomas just designed the rest of the album artwork around it.
Sounds great. I've gotten a look at it. It looks great. The
Yeah,
pre-orders are up, so everybody, it's Valentine's Day. It would be a great present for somebody who loves music.
exactly, exactly. All
Now,
those,
when
all those, all those, all those girlfriends who love prog music, who can't get enough of prog music, girlfriends and wives who just love the prog, right?
hey, we're old enough to remember that Rush shows used to be all male, and by the end, it wasn't. So
Oh
there
yeah.
is.
I'm old enough to remember Genesis shows were all male until until they
Until
started doing pop
Phil.
stuff. Until Phil, yeah, actually a couple albums after that. But
Yep.
yeah, because I saw them the first time with Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour with Gabriel.
Oh,
I know. I was a,
right.
I was a teenager, and it was all mostly guys. This typical thing. But as they, after Peter Gabriel left and Phil Collins came, after a couple albums, they started moving to the pop stuff. And you go to Genesis shows, and it's mostly women at that point. I thought, wow, you know.
Times have
So
changed.
times have changed. Exactly.
So when you meet somebody new, what do you tell them about your band? What is this? What? How do you go home up to somebody and go, "Well, I'm in this band called Pen and Seeking Animals. We sound like." How do you describe your sound?
You know, it depends because a lot of times I meet people who have no concept, who are for example, much younger.
Hmm.
And if I were to say someone our age, oh, it's like prog rock, like Yes or Genesis or whatever, they would get it. But when I say progressive, that's progressive rock. Well, progressive to a lot of younger people means EDM music or progressive house music or something like that. So it's a whole different thing. And I said, well, it's kind of like classic rock, more complicated art rock, maybe. I try to describe it and I name off a few contemporary groups that might kind of be something like. And they say, oh, cool. I'll take a listen to it. So,
Are we getting too much into genres at this time? They're so fractured and splintered. We have like
oh,
four
yeah.
to five to six things that every band calls themselves. Is that in the 70s? Everything was just music.
Well, exactly. That's what I like to say. It's music. And if someone wants to call us art rock or progressive rock or alternative rock, whatever, it's fine with me. We got the label of progressive rock because we're on a progressive rock label, and most of the fans are that into that type of music. But no, I agree. Music is, on one hand, it's all very it's a lot of boutique music. It's
Hmm.
very focused on one thing. Well, here's thrash metal, here's house music, here's drum and bass, here's EDM, whatever. It's all very back in the day. Everything would be on the same charts, and you could keep track of everything, no matter if it was jazz or rock or folk or whatever. Now there's just all these tiny little categories, these niche categories that may have hundreds of different acts in them, so it's impossible to keep up. How many different types of metal? Death metal, thrash metal. It's the same deal. So
And the
whatever you,
death thrash black metal.
yeah, death thrash, black metal, exactly. So it's whatever anyone wants to call us. It's all good. It's all good.
To me, it's always been music. I mean, obviously, with radios having formats, we have certain audiences we're trying to hit. But
Yeah.
honestly, in modern times, I have two rock stations on the internet. One plays rock, and if it's too complicated for that, it goes on the prog station.
Oh
My
yeah.
definition of prog is much wider. It's just some people want something a little more complicated, something with a little more meat on the bones, maybe a concept or
Right.
some great instrumentals or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if it's too complicated for the rock station, it goes on the prog station.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then there's alt rock, which I listen to a lot of, which is more, it's rock, but a little more creative as far as exploring new sounds. But it's not prog. It's not prog stuff, but they might do different drum sounds or keyboard sounds or approaches. So there's a
Mhm.
difference there. Alt rock, rock, it's whatever it is. It's whatever works. Whatever works. Yeah.
So, pattern seeking animals, is there a concept overall for the band? Like if you had to make a mascot today, what would you make?
There really isn't a concept. It's just mostly, for the most part, I write the material. Every once in a while, the other guys. For this album, I wrote all the material. Um, it's just me writing songs that I really like. I think that's the key to being, to coming out with something good is you have to write it for yourself. You can't write it for other people. You can't. Well, this is something I hope the prog audience will like. That's not going to work.
That's going to
It
kill you.
has, yeah, it's going to have to be something which I really like. And I figure, well, if I like it, because I listen to a lot of different prog stuff. I said, if I really like it, then hopefully other people will like it too. That's the first thing you have to do. So there isn't any concept besides that, other than in other stuff. If I was writing pop or country or whatever, there's definite formats you stay within, or different constraints.
Like
But for
conventions to the genre.
yeah, convention. You're not going to write an 8-minute country song. You're not going to write that type of thing. You're not going to write a pop song with different time changes. But so there's less constraints on the when writing this type of material, where I just kind of go with wherever it takes me. It's
Mhm.
as simple as that. I don't start out with any of these songs going, okay, I'm going to write a slow thing with a middle guitar section and a 7/4. I never start with that. I just start playing, and as it builds, it builds, it builds, and keep going. And then at some point I think, okay, it's done, and and that's it.
When you're in that pattern seeking animals mode, do you ever write something or start down a path that you go, that doesn't really fit here? I'm going to save that for something else. It's
Oh,
too pop. It's too
all
jazz. It's too.
all the time. However, not that I save it. I just get rid of it. I just erase it.
Because some
Be-
people have a folder where they put ideas that didn't make it. Maybe they'll go
Oh,
back to them and mine that.
I have tons of stuff like that. No,
What
I
if
have
you know it's something you don't like?
no, because what happens is I'll be writing a song. Let's say it's a 7-minute song, and because I'm listening to it constantly, going through the different sections, and let's say there's a minute section in there, I find myself skipping through. I think, well, if I'm skipping through this, the audience is going to, so it's gone. It's just I don't save it because I figure it's not keeping my interest, and luckily, fortunately, I don't suffer from any writer's block ever, and I can churn out stuff continually. So it's not like, oh, I'm afraid if I throw this away, I won't be able to come up with something else. It's never like that, for better or worse. Whether people like what I come up with all the time is another issue. But luckily, I don't find myself in that position ever. So no, I throw away whole. There are songs on Pattern Seeking Animals that start out to be 16 minutes long and end up to be 8, because I just nope, it's too boring. It's going on too long. It's not holding my interest.
Kind of like a movie. There's a pace, there's a flow. You
Oh
have
yeah,
to trim it down to the best parts of it.
yeah, exactly. And I try and make it because it's easy to get objective about, or it's very hard to become objective about your own material a lot of times. So I try and look at it like if I was listening to, part of the argument I always have with people I know who are into music. My position is that there's never been a double album made which couldn't have been made better by making it a single album.
Let me think about that.
Well, and it's impossible to judge in retrospect
Sure.
because, if you love Quadrophenia, that's the album. But if you try and look at it objectively, you might go, yeah, you could have taken this out, or
There's a
Lamb-West
few
on
that could come
Broadway.
out, right?
There's always a few, and I always think they'd be stronger. And I try and look at my stuff like that. I try and look at it like, you know what? Uh, this is a good album now, but if I take this song out, it's going to be great. I try and go that way to do more editing. I think I've gotten pretty good at it, but it's tough sometimes because you really grow fond of certain things, even though objectively, maybe it doesn't fit. And a couple of times I've let things go where I probably shouldn't have, but overall,
But you
overall it
shoot
works.
for all killer, no filler.
Exactly. I'll kill her, no filler. Exactly. Exactly. That's my goal. That's
So how about playing shows?
Um, Prog music is tough to play as an American act,
Oh,
and
I
also,
know.
yeah, yeah, uh, we have
I
something
mean, unless you
scheduled.
hit one of those festivals or whatever, what can you do? You have to basically put together a tour with many other people.
Yeah, and we're going to do a Prague stock later in the year, 2025, which is cool. And there's a couple other things we're working on getting going. But again, it's the issue. It's the cost.
Hmm.
It's the cost and getting it together, getting the audience. And also, well, Alaska, that's one thing. Living in California, like a lot of times when you see prog bands coming over here from Europe, they play a bunch on the East Coast. They do not get to this side of the country.
Too
It's
expensive to
it's
get
not
over there.
exactly. It's huge cost. When you're in Europe, going through all of Europe is just like going through part of California. It's just, California is huge. So just from north to south, that's like going through four different countries in Europe. So it's much easier, to do it that way. Um, so it's tough, but we put it together. I don't play live in the band. I'm not. I'm a couple of reasons. I just don't like playing live. I haven't played live in 30 years, and I'm not
Oh,
a good
wow.
enough. I'm not a good enough player to play the stuff I write. So, which is people think is strange, but I'm just not.
You know your
Uh,
limitations.
I
You're
know
a
my
great
limitations.
writer.
Yeah, so we get the three other guys in the band, Jimmy, Dave, and Ted. Then we have two other musicians to fill everything else out. And but no, we're looking at booking some other things. But again, it's tough. It's a tough business.
Well, that leads into another thing here in 2025, the beginning of it. How important is the record label? How important is the social media? How important is the tour to you being financially able to continue doing what you do?
Well, financially, it's not really. I think because I'm the songwriter, I might come out roughly even in doing everything. Roughly, I usually go out of pocket a little bit, but I'm not in this to make money. I do it because I purely love doing it. It's a passion of mine, writing this type of music. So if I make a little bit of money, it's fine. But you know, it might buy me an extra lunch at whatever. So it's no kind of money like that. Um, so you go out a little bit of pocket. Whether the record label is important, where it comes down to is for promotion and a structure. Briefly, because we were on Inside Out for the first four albums, and when that contract ended, I briefly thought of, well, let's just put it out ourselves. And then I realized, no, that's just, we could do it, but it's way more work, and I don't really want to. I don't want to become a record label. I don't want to do that. But GEP is a great label, and it's been great working with them. And we get all the promo out there. The thing is, the prog. I think the limitation with probably every prog label is getting outside of that genre. They
Hmm.
want to focus on the audience they have, which is a great audience. There's a big audience and a very dedicated, hardcore prog audience that will just
But you're
buy stuff all
basically preaching to the choir. I mean, you're
preaching to the choir. And yeah, and if I were to come up with, and I have several times, well, this song you might want to pitch to, alt rock or wherever. You might want to. It's just, they're not interested. They want to just focus on. So there's always a fight of trying to expand it. Yeah, the tunnel vision. But I understand it from a business. I completely understand it from a business sense. So, what can you do? It's fine. It's fine.
how about making the videos? Do you enjoy that part of it?
Well, the videos, we stopped a couple albums ago making videos with us in them.
Hmm.
Um,
Which a lot of
I
bands do.
yeah, I hate it. I love being in. For this one, I have other outside people making it. None of the band members are in it. None of the band members were in it for the last album because really, who wants to see us? We had some live things we put out there with playing, but really, it's something to look at while you're listening to the music. And with the budgets, first of all, Jimmy and I live in Southern California in Los Angeles. Dave lives up Northern California, and Ted lives in New York. So just by the time to get everyone together here, plane flights, hotel rooms, you've already spent the entire video budget,
Hmm.
from there. I suppose if we were all in the same city, we could, okay, let's show up at this place on Saturday, let's do it, But it's just, it's too much and it's too expensive, for what purpose, I think.
But now you
So
have these animated videos, visualizers, and things like that.
yeah, the visualizers, because I found a couple artists who are really good and do really cool stuff for very low price. And the people who do the lyric videos. The guy who
Mhm.
did our animation on the two on Future Perfect World, and In My Dying Days. We have another one with the same guy coming out in a couple weeks.
Excellent.
But yeah, he did the animation, the moving, the animation, the visualizer part. Then I have another guy I work with who does all the lyrics themselves and combines them. Very inexpensive, and I think it gets the whole point of the thing across. The other video we did was for Down the Darkest Road, and there's this guy Stuart Wallen we worked with in the past who puts together videos from stock footage, but he's really creative to make like a story out of all this stuff. It's kind of
Mhm.
amazing what he does. So we had him do that on that one. But I think our days of actually being in the videos is long gone, long gone.
And I think that is for a lot of bands. These days, they're looking for, I think, that creative element that takes the album into the visual world.
Yeah, right. And it's like with me, if a lot of the times, if I'm discovering new music on YouTube, it's just a cover, it's just a picture of the album cover, and you're
Mhm.
listening to it, or it might be some kind of a lyric, lyric video, just basic stuff. But I'm not at this point. Music videos. If you watch a lot of modern pop, K-pop, those videos, they have these uh, After Effects and special effects videos, which look like $5 million budget science fiction films
Yeah,
because there's
multi-million
this.
dollar movies.
Yeah, and they're not that expensive, but they're so good now. It's hard to really be impressed with a video these days.
Mhm.
It used to be someone to do something really creative, and you go, "Whoa, that's unique. We haven't seen that before." Now, nothing is impossible. It just all looks great, and these people using the After Effects and the all that kind of stuff, it's hard to stand out,
But I think
especially
sometimes that
yeah.
takes away from the song. Sometimes that if I'm so blown away by the visuals, I'm not paying attention to the music anymore.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. The music has to be good by itself, and the video should be there just to enhance it, or just have something pleasant to look. Could just be a bowl of goldfish, in front of you. It almost doesn't matter. It's like when people during Christmas they have the Yule log. The Grateful Dead channel has a Yule log while the music's playing. It's that kind of thing. As long as there's something there, that's what people want. They just want to hear the music. They're not going to continually look at the video. They're
No.
going to watch it a couple times and then
But
they'll
after
decide
that, they
whether.
just want to hear the song.
Yeah, so they're either going to buy the album or stream it or whatever. They're not going to keep. They might. Who knows? I'm kind of crazy because I save some videos occasionally and or bookmark them on YouTube and I'll watch them again. But for the most part, it's promotion. It's promotion for the act.
As the industry moves more towards singles, you guys going to keep making albums?
It's a good question. When we were with Inside Out, they were dead set against that. Because a couple of times I would come to them and say, you know what? I have like three songs that aren't really a good fit with the last album or the next one. Can we release that as an EP? No, it just wasn't good. It's just they because they would have a schedule, and rightfully so because they're successful of
Sure.
how they promote things and how they put things out. GEP is a little more open to that type of stuff, and we don't have limitations with the other label. With most labels, you're not allowed to put out your own thing. We couldn't just put one album out and say, okay, now we're going to release our own single. No, you have a contract, and I think GEP is a little more would be open to that type of thing. So I'll probably at some point talk to them and say, well, let's put out a single, let's put out an EP or something, whatever. So I'd be into it, but again, prog audiences are not into the whole. I mean, some are. I mean, the single thing works sometimes, but they want the album. They want something even physical they can look at. I mean, that's not me, but they want something they can hold in their hand. They want the album cover.
I
They
do.
want.
I'll buy the bigger media book that has the Dolby Atmos mix or the 5.1 mix, and
Yeah.
so I can have that document of if I really like the album on my shelf. I like having a thing.
Oh, I completely get it. The thing is with me is that I've gone back to remember when you were a kid and the way you would listen to music. You'd have some little radio when you're 10 years old or whatever, and you would just listen to the top 40 radio, and you'd get into really one song, and you'd really be into it. And then it'll go down the charts in the next, and you'd be interested in the next song. You had a
Mhm.
constant new thing coming out, and you
Flow.
wouldn't really necessarily buy the single, you wouldn't, but you were into it. I never lost that. So I know a lot of people our age do not listen to new music at all. I listen to music constantly, just wall to wall. I watch almost no TV. I don't watch movies. I listen to music. If I'm not writing music, I listen to it. So I listen to a ton of new music, and it's just constant. It comes up and down the charts. And even if I hear something I really like, if I heard an album I really liked when I was 20 years old, let's say Genesis, Trick of the Tail comes out or whatever,
Oh, such a good album.
it's fantastic, and I've listened probably thousands of times since then. It's one of my favorite albums ever.
Same.
But I can listen to, there's been albums that have come out which have just been, I've thought this is fantastic in the last couple of years,
Mhm.
and I'll only listen to it once or twice, and that's it. Then I'm on to the next thing. As good as I think it is, because there's not enough room in my brain
Mhm.
to have all that stuff going, and yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but I like it. I like the freshness of doing it that way. So roundabout way to the question, I don't buy physical stuff. I haven't bought a CD in 20 years, 15 years.
Wow.
As soon as iTunes came out and I could burn them all, rip them all to iTunes. I have a
Mhm.
room. I had a giant stack of CDs, which I threw away all the jewel cases in the other room there. But I just ripped everything, and now I just buy. If I'm going to buy it, I just buy digital copies of it.
Mhm.
It's just easier to deal with. It's way more convenient, and I never got back into vinyl. I understand why
I
people
couldn't
do.
either.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it, and I, to me, it's like one of the great things about digital is that you can sit here in my desk. I can sit here and be lazy, eating lunch or something, and just listen to it, and I don't have to get up and flip the disc over.
I
You know,
saw I saw yesterday a Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab is putting out a 45 RPM version of a classic album. How
wow.
fast is that? Like two songs per side? I mean, you would have to flip the album like every two songs. It
I
came
wonder
with
if,
two discs,
oh,
a
maybe,
classic album, 40 minutes,
yeah.
but 45 RPMs.
Wow. I wonder if they did that just for fidelity because it's
Well,
spinning
they
faster.
did, yeah, but
Was it the size of a 45 or was it the size of a
it's the
regular?
size of an album.
Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm. And you get
Y-
like two discs for a classic album. So
Yeah,
that
you'd
would
have to.
tell me
Yeah.
you get about two songs per side.
Yeah. I guess maybe the theory being is that because it's going faster, the quality is better. I suppose that's the theory. You know,
But I got
uh,
to get up every 10 minutes and change my.
yeah. Yeah. You had those old things with the singles that would just drop down. Ding, here's the next one, and it would keep playing. Ding,
Kind of
automatic.
scratch the album.
Yeah, right. Those things. Yeah, it's just not for me.
No,
Just
same
and
here.
and plus there's arguments. There are arguments forever about which sounds better, vinyl or digital. The problem is with me, it's the noise. I swear to God, when I was a kid, one of my favorite albums was the Yes album,
Hmm.
and there was a place on the Yes album when I was a kid. This is more than 50 years ago. A really bad skip in the record I had. It would all go gunk. To this day, when I hear Yours Is No Disgrace, I expect that skip to come
That
up.
could fall.
50 years later, I just expect it. Okay, oh, wait a second. This is a half a century later, and it's not an album,
That's
but it's
ingrained in your
still,
memory.
it's burned in my memory because I played it, 100 times when I was a kid. So, um, and I just don't, I guess because I'm into the recording end of it and everything has to be precise. If I hear like the crackling on an LP, it takes me out of it.
Didn't
So,
it drive you nuts, like in the late 90s, early 21st century, when bands were actually putting a crackle into the digital song because they wanted to
well,
have that sound? That used to drive me crazy.
Well, sometimes it was cool on CDs because you would start as like a record starting. It's kind of a
If you
novelty.
use it, yeah, if
Yeah,
you, and then you
just at
get
the
into
beginning.
it, sure.
Right. At one point, I was in one of the pattern seeking, or maybe one of the Spock Spear things I worked on. I thought it'd be cool to start this with a that sound, but then I thought, wait a second, this is going to be out on vinyl, so people won't. They'll just think it's the record sounding like this. No, that crossed my mind for like 2 seconds. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, John, thank you for taking the time today. We've never talked before, and this was wonderful.
Cool. I'm around anytime. I will babble endlessly about music. So,
Well, let's talk more. The album doesn't come out until February the 14th. Pre-orders
right.
are up, so everybody go get the fifth album from Patter Seeking Animals.
Yeah, you can go to either our website, psanimals1, the number one.com, or our Facebook page. Just look up, Pattern Seeking Animals, PS Animal 1, whether it's X or Instagram, whatever, it's all PS Animals 1 is the username. So you'll find it. You can also go to GEP Records and we're around.
Well,
Yeah.
I've heard three cuts off the album, and I love it so far, so I can't wait to hear the
Oh,
whole thing.
cool. Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, not too long. You have 3 more weeks.
I know.
So we're all good.
Well, we'll talk again, John. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good day.